This podcast is brought to you by the Part of Your Broadway World podcast.
Welcome back to the AI Analysis Podcast. It's time to talk pro wrestling again with the Down the Middle podcast. Now, you sent us this video clip from their show all about over and underrated wrestlers, and we spent a good chunk of time really immersing ourselves in what they had to say.
Yeah, we really dug into it. And our mission today is to truly unpack the perspectives shared in that video. We want to go beyond just, what was said and truly explore the underlying arguments, why certain wrestlers or even entire companies get tagged as overrated or underrated.
Right.
Ultimately, we want to connect these discussions to the broader landscape of pro wrestling, helping you understand the nuances that exist well beyond, the surface level stuff.
Exactly. And let me tell you, the hosts of Down the Middle, they definitely don't pull any punches, do they?
No, not at all.
It was an incredibly energetic, opinionated discussion, and it gave us a whole lot to chew on. Okay, let's unpack this. There's a lot to dig into.
Indeed. It was quite the passionate exchange, wasn't it? A real snapshot of current wrestling discourse.
So the immediate focus of that Down the Middle video, what they call the elephant in the room, was, of course, Vince McMahon's retirement. I remember, and I'm sure you do too, the long-standing belief in the wrestling world that Vince would literally never retire. Like he'd be running that company until his last breath.
Totally. Everyone thought that.
So when the announcement came, it wasn't just surprising, it felt almost seismic.
Well, and what's truly fascinating here is the theory presented in the video about the actual circumstances.
Yeah.
The hosts speculated pretty strongly that it wasn't a voluntary exit at all, but rather a direct result of that big corporate investigation and the large payouts he had made.
Right, the hush money stuff.
Exactly. The implication was less of a personal choice and more of an ultimatum. Work with us, step aside, or we're going to fire you. Something like that. It was framed as a forced retirement, a very calculated maneuver to preserve his, 4-decade legacy.
Definitely years, yeah.
Specifically to avoid the sort of stain of an outright public firing.
Right. And they brought up his age, too, 77 after 40 years running the show. They questioned what he possibly had left to prove, especially with, the sheer amount of success and power he'd amassed. But even if it was framed as a retirement, if the circumstances were forced, that still leaves a pretty significant mark on that legacy, doesn't it?
You'd think so.
It's not exactly going out on your own terms.
Well, one of the hosts actually argued quite persuasively that the company, in effect, did him a solid.
Solid, really?
Yeah. By allowing him to retire and go out as the big man on top, they basically facilitated a graceful exit, at least, publicly, despite the very serious and damaging circumstances swirling behind the scenes. The argument was that this approach let him keep that powerful image of control.
Even if it was an illusion.
Exactly. Even if it was, in essence, a meticulously managed illusion. It protected the company's image, too, right? Allowed a smoother transition, avoided the PR nightmare of firing its founder.
See, I don't know if I fully buy that it was doing him a solid. When you're talking about corporate investigations into, serious allegations and then massive payouts to keep things quiet.
Yeah.
That sounds a lot more like managed damage control for the company itself rather than, a personal favor to Vince.
That's a fair point.
It's hard to call any exit graceful when the circumstances cast such a long, dark shadow over a 40-year career. It feels more like the company was trying to mitigate the financial and reputational damage to its own stock value, its public perception, by having him step down quietly or, as quietly as possible.
Right. Instead of a public firing that would have just blown up.
Exactly. It felt like risk management, not some benevolent gesture.
That's a very valid counterpoint. It definitely wasn't a clean slate, no matter how they framed it. And speaking of his future, the Down the Middle hosts had some playful yet kind of intriguing speculative ideas.
Oh, yeah.
They actually wondered if Vince might somehow start a new wrestling company, maybe even partnering with John Cena.
Get out of here, Cena!
Yeah. To create some kind of indie promotion that blows up, almost like a modern-day FCW, Florida Championship Wrestling.
Wow. That was a wild one. The idea of Vince McMahon starting an indie promotion, it just feels absurd.
But they did touch on the financial side, didn't they? Given his, immense wealth, he certainly has the money.
Oh, absolutely. But this raises a really important question. If he were to start something new, how would that even be possible, practically? The video explicitly mentioned the strong likelihood of him having signed all kinds of non-competes as part of his retirement deal.
Ah, right. Non-competes. Good point.
Yeah. For those who don't know, a non-compete clause basically says you agree not to start a similar business competing against your old company. These clauses would likely severely restrict his ability to work in wrestling for, set period, maybe years. So launching a new promotion right away seems highly unlikely.
Even with billions.
Even with billions, it's a legal hurdle money can't just instantly fix. Right. So with Vince out, the video then carefully outlined the new leadership structure.
Yeah.
They described it as Stephanie McMahon stepping in as co-CEO and chairperson.
Right.
With Nick Khan as the other co-CEO. And, of course, the big one, Triple H as executive vice president of talent. Key creative spot.
Huge.
They also noted that long-timers like Kevin Dunn and Bruce Pritchard are expected to stay in their day-to-day roles, so some continuity there.
Absolutely. And based on that, the down-the-middle hosts made a pretty bold prediction for WWE's future under this new leadership. They believe it won't be business as usual. Specifically, they suggested the potential for the main roster to become very reminiscent to NXT from years past.
The golden years.
When it was the golden years, exactly. Triple H has his druthers. The thought is, if he gets the creative freedom he had during NXT's black and gold era.
Which everyone loved.
Right. Known for great in-ring work, compelling characters, logical stories, we could see a significant shift in the WWE product. What's truly fascinating here is, how do you see this new leadership impacting the wrestling you watch? Do you genuinely expect a return to that NXT style, or maybe something else entirely?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
The hope is definitely there for something more creatively driven. And that kind of leads us right to the question the video asked about Vince himself. Is he ultimately overrated or underrated?
The down-the-middle hosts definitely presented a very strong underrated case for Vince. They painted him as the mastermind behind, an unprecedented 40-year run.
Can't argue with the success.
Transforming wrestling from regional shows into a global entertainment giant. Their argument was that dirt sheets, wrestling news sites, and fans often focus only on the negative stuff. Like the recent Max Dupree LA Knight gimmick changes, remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Without really getting the full context. They emphasize that people criticize without knowing the true story behind his choices, suggesting there's a complexity to running a multi-billion-dollar company that, fans don't always see. His genius goes unappreciated, basically.
And it's undeniably hard to argue with the results, right? As one of the hosts put it, pretty bluntly, something's worked for him to have $3 billion. That kind of success speaks volumes. He revolutionized how wrestling was presented, marketed, everything.
Indeed. Reaching that level of dominance, it takes some kind of strategic genius, even if you debate the methods. His ability to adapt and innovate was pretty unique.
But I've got to throw in a bit of a counterpoint here, kind of linked to what they said about Stephanie, too. It's a similar thought. I actually think Vince, and maybe Stephanie by extension, might be marginally overrated?
No. How so?
Well, the video implies Stephanie's success, especially in her corporate roles, is massively amplified because she operates with the backing of a million-dollar, multi-million-dollar company.
Mm-hmm.
So what does this all mean? Does having immense resources make you a genius, or just make success almost unavoidable?
Interesting question.
When you have that kind of money, that infrastructure, that global reach, it almost feels like, as one host kind of crudely put it, a chimp could get that over with that kind of money. It feels like the resources pave an easier path, maybe leading to an inflated perception of individual genius compared to someone building from scratch.
It raises a crucial point about measuring innovation versus just leveraging existing power. The context of those resources is definitely a factor. Are they building or just maintaining?
Exactly. Okay, shifting gears pretty significantly now, let's talk AEW. The down-the-middle hosts kicked off their overrated wrestler list with Kenny Omega. One of them specifically recalled praising him so highly back in 2018.
Oh, yeah, I remember that time.
Calling him the best wrestler in the world outside WWE. That was a huge statement back then.
And that initial praise makes his current overrated status, according to the video, even more striking, right? The argument for his perceived decline since being on TV weekly, or even being out injured, was pretty sharp. One host noted, kind of clinically, the show has not suffered with his absence.
Ouch, implying he's not essential anymore.
Right. Another highlighted the quote, if it's going to be the same old Kenny Omega, I don't know how excited I am. This suggests a perceived staleness, maybe a lack of evolution in his character or ring work that, in their view, diminished his value, especially with him being gone so often.
Yeah, that same old Kenny Omega line.
Yeah.
It hits on the challenge of adapting that indie style to weekly TV. Now, the hosts acknowledged they might get labeled AEW bashers for some critiques, but they clarified it's more about a WWE old-school preference.
Right, a style preference.
For a certain kind of presentation, not just hating on AEW. They appreciate different things.
That distinction is important. It frames their criticism as preference, not just malice. And from that viewpoint, they detailed several key critiques of NCW. First, booking nonsense, illogical storytelling, weird match placement. The example was Jon Moxley, even as interim champ, working the second match, not the main event.
Yeah, that felt like a valid point for traditional booking fans. Breaks the importance illusion.
Totally. Then there's the issue of cold matches. While AEW delivers dream matches WWE didn't give us, the hosts argued they're often presented cold. Meaning they lack enough story, character motivation, or long-term build-up to really hit emotionally. Technically great, maybe, but no narrative weight. Like a finale without Acts 1 and 2.
Good analogy. A technical match needs a story.
Yeah.
And speaking of issues, they hit on quality control and botches. They appreciated WWE's generally more polished style, fewer mistakes. The video specifically mentioned numerous botch compilations for AEW. That's not great.
No. And they cited specifics. The Chris Jericho ring the damn bell confusion during Blood and Guts.
Ugh.
And the really problematic Blood and Guts airbag spot where Jericho got pushed off the cage and you could blatantly see the crash pad.
Oh, that was so obvious.
Right. They compared it to KO's WrestleMania 36 jump off the sign, where WWE's cameras expertly hid the pad, maintaining the illusion.
That Jericho spot completely shattered the illusion.
Yeah.
It makes you ask, are these cool, high-risk spots worth the danger? Or maybe worse, the obvious fakery that just breaks immersion? For you watching, is seeing the spectacle worth it if the trick is exposed so badly?
Which leads directly into their overall assessment. AEW, as a company, is overrated and overhyped. They pointed to tremendously dropped ratings, noting AEW is only getting about 200,000 more viewers than NXT, WWE's lowest-rated show. That suggests a drop in appeal, they argue.
Now, I'll push back a bit there because even the hosts in the video admitted the first couple years of Dynamite was must-see TV. Some of that was novelty, sure, but there was genuine quality too. Fresh roster, different energy. It drew people in who felt WWE was stale.
That's true. The initial buzz and quality were undeniable. But they quickly pivoted to what they see as the core problem now, oversaturation. They argued that hiring like 400 people on your roster, their number, and then adding all the ROH talent.
After Tony Khan bought ROH.
AEW just has too much talent for only 3 hours of TV a week between Dynamite and Rampage. Too many cooks.
And they really hammered the point that the YouTube shows, Dark and Elevation, aren't widely watched. So much talent goes unseen. They also noted a shift from building new stars like Best Friends or Orange Cassidy early on to relying heavily on nostalgia acts Christian, Punk, Jericho.
Which can alienate the original AEW fans who wanted something fresh, right?
Exactly.
They expanded on that oversaturation by looking at individual gimmicks. How weekly TV, in their view, ruined acts like Best Friends and Orange Cassidy. Acts that were cute and fun, sparingly on the indies, lost their appeal with constant, maybe poorly handled exposure.
And then they absolutely went after Danhausen. They argued putting him on weekly TV was a mistake because his gimmick does not work in that format. They detailed the failure of his cursing gimmick. He'd try to curse people, but then just get the shit kicked out of him.
Making it look ineffective.
Yeah, making the whole concept bullshit because the curse clearly didn't do anything in the story. Why care?
What's interesting, though, is one host, despite the criticism, actually pitched a creative solution for Danhausen, an alternative booking idea.
Oh, yeah.
Pair him with Hook. Make it seem like Danhausen is trying to curse Hook, but it's not working. Then reveal he's actually subtly cursing Hook's opponents. So the audience wonders, is Hook really that good, or is it Danhausen's hidden influence? It makes the gimmick work within the story.
That's actually a really smart idea. A clever bit of storytelling. But then, right after that, they had a huge disagreement about Hook himself. One host called Hook overrated, saying, "I can't stand Hook, I hate the presentation."
But the other fired back immediately, right? I freaking love Hook. I can't get enough of Hook. Total opposites.
Exactly. So, for you, listening to those completely different takes, where do you land on Hook? Real deal? Or just hype and a famous dad? We're going to take a quick moment right here, because sometimes you just need a moment to collect your thoughts after immersing yourself in some wild wrestling opinions, and that's where our sponsor comes in.
Hi, this is Bill Farmer, you know, the voice of Goofy and other characters. You got to watch the Heart of Your Broadway World podcast right here. It's going to be fun.
Now, back to those opinions and a look beyond the major promotions. So we've talked WWE and AEW, but the conversation in the video expanded to other promotions and global styles, which was cool. They actually praised Control Your Narrative, CYN, as underrated, highlighted its unique movie-style presentation and its distinct backstory telling.
Yeah, different from normal wrestling shows.
Which they found really refreshing. They even joked about some of the ridiculous rules they saw there, which added to its unique vibe.
And what's fascinating is the conversation broadened to include things like Warrior Wrestling, a local indie known for big names like Will Ospreay, and discovering the Pro Wrestling TV app, which gives access to a wider range of wrestling content. If we connect this to the bigger picture, it really highlights the diverse wrestling ecosystem out there, beyond just WWE and AEW. Lots more to explore. The wrestling world's way bigger than two companies. And then they moved to AAA, labeling it overrated, but with an asterisk.
Yep.
Their main complaint was it's super fast, almost multiple car crashes style. They found it nearly impossible to follow, just flippy-dippy nonsense, too fast, too random, no clear story in the ring.
That's where they cleverly brought in Lucha Underground. They argued that slowing down AAA's lucha style made it awesome and more understandable for more people while keeping the acrobatics. They even noted performers like the Lucha Bros had to literally slow the heck down in AEW to fit the North American tagging and storytelling style.
Makes sense. Adaptation.
Then they touched on New Japan. Noted it usually has fewer botches than AEW, but paradoxically, more injuries because of its strong style. Explained strong style is about realistic, hard hits, stiff grappling, leading to more impactful but also more physically demanding, potentially riskier matches. Admitted this style might not be understood by everyone.
That botches versus injuries distinction is interesting. Different philosophies, different trade-offs. They also brought up the Forbidden Door pay-per-view, the AEW New Japan crossover. One host said he didn't buy the hype because it wasn't true Japanese strong style. Didn't deliver on that promise for him.
Which leads to a disagreement within the video itself, mirroring fandom subjectivity. While one host found it lacking that style, the other pointed out people praised it as the best pay-per-view ever.
Right. Wildly different reactions.
Shows how polarizing these crossovers can be, depending on what you prioritize in wrestling.
And as a quick contrast, they briefly mentioned WWE's recent shows, WrestleMania, Backlash, Money in the Bank 2022, were all super solid, providing a different flavor of quality. Now let's dive into individual wrestlers. This is where the over-under debate really heated up, became super personal for the hosts.
It certainly did. Shows how personal these takes are. Ultimate Warrior, for instance, branded tremendously overrated. Not for the gimmick they admitted that worked great, iconic character, but for his actual in-ring ability. One host just bluntly said he was a turd in the ring.
Ouch, turd in the ring. Pretty harsh, but clear. But then they pivoted sharply to Pat McAfee, called him unequivocally underrated and great.
Yeah.
Even said he's better than Corey Graves on commentary. That's high praise for a non-wrestler.
Absolutely. They were downright impressed with his WrestleMania match against Vince, praised his charisma, his surprisingly decent ring skills, and mentioned he was trained by Rip Rogers, a respected trainer known for teaching fundamentals. That adds credibility, elevates him beyond just a celebrity spot.
Good point. And then Austin Theory. They pitched him as underrated, calling him the next big star, possessing every single freaking tool. Look, athleticism, youth, confidence works.
Yeah, and they backed it up by lamenting that Theory versus Cena wasn't booked for SummerSlam that year. Saw it as a huge missed opportunity to elevate Theory against a legend. Felt WWE was playing it too slow. Lex Luger was briefly mentioned as overrated, implied his physique got him further than maybe his consistent performance warranted.
Then Logan Paul.
Yeah.
Argument was strongly underrated and that he got it. Understood wrestling's nuances, emphasized his actual training, not just showing up.
They reinforced that, recalling his surprisingly strong WrestleMania 37 performance, smiling after taking a skull-crushing finale, beating Rey Mysterio, even mentioned him bringing that super expensive Pokemon card, showcased his ability to blend his brand with the spectacle. He understood how to get buzz and take a bump.
And now, for a very strong disagreement point from me, channeling the spirit of those down-the-middle hosts, they brought up Bad Bunny. And frankly, I think he might be the single most overrated human being on planet Earth.
Yeah.
He's, in my view, a talentless hack, voiced like a broken speaking spell. I just don't get the hype at all.
Whoa, okay. Well, to counter that rather strong opinion, the video did highlight his massive popularity, especially in the Spanish-speaking world. He's a music giant there. They also noted he's a giant wrestling mark, a huge fan, and clearly pours that passion into his appearances. One host pointed out that Damian Priest and The Miz were key in getting Bad Bunny over in WWE.
Okay, fair point.
Suggesting his success wasn't just him, but WWE's presentation, booking, and the experienced talent guiding him. They made him look good.
That's fair. He didn't do it alone. And speaking of The Miz, the down-the-middle hosts flat out called him the most underrated dude in wrestling.
And I 100% agree with that. One host passionately championed him, highlighted his classy, down-to-earth personality off-screen, contrasting his heel character, compared his whole package personality plus solid ring skill favorably to MJF, who leans more on characteristic work, deepened the underrated argument. 15-year career, only one known injury, never injured anyone else, like Bret Hart's safety record.
That's impressive durability and safety.
Right. Addressed the bad angle critique, admitted the zombie thing was weak but not Miz's fault, defended his chick magnet heel work, owning the gimmick, said his pairing with Morrison and the Dirt Sheet made him a made man, showcased his unique comedy and arrogance. What's fascinating is how Miz has consistently proven his worth for so long.
Yeah, always reliable.
Often without the mainstream praise he really deserves.
Right, a true company guy. Okay, back to the McMahons. Stephanie, as an on-screen character, not the exec, overrated or underrated there. Video suggested marginally overrated and no Vicky Guerrero in terms of generating that pure heel heat.
That's a high bar. Vicky was amazing at getting booed. They then debated Billy Gunn as a singles guy. Initial underrated argument, then the counterpoint that his singles run, like versus The Rock in '99, just did not work.
Yeah, that run fizzled.
Led to him going back to tag teams. Hosts concluded overrated as a singles wrestler, but gold in a tag team.
Tag team specialist, basically. Val Venis came up. Personally, I think he's underrated.
See, I'd argue overrated on the gimmick itself, which was pretty cheesy, but I'll absolutely concede he had a home run in ring work. They cited his later time as Chief Morley, the censor, as examples of him performing well technically, despite the earlier character. Good worker.
Okay, fair. In-ring was solid. How about the Street Profits?
Called half and half. Acknowledged Montez Ford as a clear star charisma, athleticism, but compared the duo dismissively to Dollar Tree Private Party.
Oof. Dollar Tree Private Party.
That's a low blow.
Harsh but memorable critique, yeah.
Now, a big one for me, and the video brought this up, Jeff Hardy. I think he's the most overrated star in wrestling currently. Repetitive moveset, whisper in the wind constantly, and sadly, his personal issues impacting things.
The Seen One match, Seen Them All criticism was also extended to RVD. Acknowledged his innovation in his prime, but suggested later stagnation once others copied his style. But Bam Bam Bigelow, almost universally called underrated and amazing. One host even said Bam Bam influenced his own in-ring style. Big guy agility. He was amazing for his size, revolutionary. Now, the one wrestler I'd watch forever, Kevin Owens. I think he's something special. The whole package, even over AJ Styles, as best wrestler in the world for me.
Strong endorsement for KO. And that leads to Shinsuke Nakamura. The overrated argument in the video was based on his current WWE presentation. Complained he just puts a foot on a guy's chest and shakes. Less impact.
That's frustrating to hear, given his past.
I'd strongly counter that. Argue he's underrated because WWE isn't letting him be Shinsuke, not letting him use the intensity and offense that made him a star. They recalled his crazy good matches in New Japan against Brock, against AJ Styles, expressed disappointment in their WWE match, saying it was nothing compared to New Japan. Classic case of creative stifling talent.
Makes sense. WWE kind of ruined him for many old fans.
Yeah.
Walter or Gunther?
Briefly and controversially called overrated, implying his dominance might overshadow variety. And Pete Dunne-Butch. Pete Dunne hailed as phenomenal, technical, finger-breaking style.
Yeah, Dunne was great.
But Butch is stupid, highlighting that frustration with arbitrary gimmick changes.
Common WWE complaint, right? Changing what works. Sheamus and Cesaro.
Both called underrated and poorly utilized. Sheamus's longevity, consistency, evolution cited as proof of skill. One host added R-Truth to this group, asking, where the heck is R-Truth? Another underused talent.
Truth is missed. Mick Foley.
Suggested, adequately rated. His hardcore style, willingness to take bumps, plus his endearing characters, Cactus, Mankind, Dude Love, balances out. He's just rated appropriately.
Okay. Didn't talk much about women, but Charlotte Flair. I think adequately rated, really, really good, consistently strong performer.
Yeah, mostly seen as rated fairly, but then, Natalia, you said overrated.
I do, consistently.
Well, you feel that way, I'd lean underrated. The discussion shifted to family legacy, like with Rock's daughter, Eva Raine, how it can hinder expectations and be underutilized.
Liv Morgan.
Yes,
I say underrated. Her performances, connection, unreal growth from Riot Squad to now.
I agree with underrated, acknowledge the fan connection, improved work, but criticism on how she won the title, like a charity case, made her look weak, almost like a heel getting lucky, contrasted with keeping Ronda strong.
And Ronda Rousey.
Yeah.
Another strong disagreement for me. Massively overrated. Never fully clicked in wrestling for me.
I actually agree with you there. One host called her potential MMA return a horrible decision, referenced Miesha Tate's recent losses, implying a similar fate. Her WWE run felt short of the hype.
Bella Twins. My take, Nikki underrated. Brie overrated.
I agree with that split. Feeling was Nikki brings so much more presence, athleticism, character. Brie plays it too safe, lacks the same spark. Ruby Soho, you had a nuanced view. Underrated as Ruby Riott in WW, but tremendously overrated as Ruby Soho in AEW. Quick fall from grace, despite being an indie darling.
Yeah, didn't translate as a top star in AEW somehow.
Aw.
Omos. I think overrated as hell. He's just big.
What's fascinating is I'd actually argue underrated. Uncommon take, I know. Video suggested Omos has a unique quality compared to other giants like Gonzalez or Kali. A raw physical presence, an aura.
See, I'd counter. Braun Strowman is more underrated. Braun could take the bumps, sell moves convincingly, unlike Omos's no-sell style. Braun had power and believable vulnerability.
Fair comparison on ring psychology. Acknowledge Omos was fast-tracked too quickly. WrestleMania 37 performance was drizzling shit, unpolished. Money in the Bank was not bad, showed improvement, but controversially suggested big men need fast-tracking. Their size is the draw, capitalize quickly, can't wait for technical perfection.
Okay, I see the logic, maybe not the execution. Bobby Lashley and Drew McIntyre. I think Lashley is criminally underrated. Honestly, the best champion of the last X years in WWE.
Bold statement. But I see the argument. Connects to both their time in Impact TNA. Hosts argued they learned something there, gained main event experience, honed their craft before returning to WWE, helped their later success.
EC3 and Mr. Anderson. I called EC3 overrated. Good talker, average in ring for me.
I'd counter Mr. Anderson, Kennedy, is underrated. Great mic skills, compelling character, could have been a top star, but acknowledged his rep for being unsafe. Randy Orton's stories plagued his career.
Potential versus execution and safety. Chris Benoit and CM Punk.
Right.
I said Benoit is neither overrated nor underrated as a performer. Great technician, but had a boring title run.
Argument from the hosts. WWE didn't let him be a champion, didn't book him dominantly, drew a parallel to CM Punk's first world heavyweight title reign, also not featured as a champion, like keeping the belt warm.
Fascinating connection. Champion in name only. Eddie Guerrero and JBL.
Eddie, universally called, always underrated. Incredible blend of skills fans underestimated. JBL seen as underrated overall, versatile through different characters. Bradshaw, JBL.
And then Jeff Jarrett. Strong disagreement time for me. Criminally underrated. Fantastic heel. Amazing longevity.
And I immediately counter overrated and frankly a jerk. Based on personal encounters, like the host mentioned, backstage rep often overshadowed his work for many.
Oh, come on. Maybe you're being too harsh. But I acknowledge Jarrett had go-home heat, made people genuinely dislike him. Mark of a great villain.
Even so, the Jarrett family, Jarrett especially, deserves credit for trying to keep wrestling competitive with TNA Impact. Keeping tradition alive, like Undertaker, keeping kayfabe. Michael Elgin came up, you called him overrated.
Yep.
I'd argue underrated as an actual in-ring worker. Great power athleticism blend. But fully acknowledge his controversial jerk reputation outside the ring. Personal behavior clouds perception.
Fair distinction. The New Day. Kofi, Xavier, Big E. I think Kofi's overrated. Amazing moment, but career hasn't sustained that top level.
Agreed. And while you might say Xavier Woods is underrated, charisma behind-the-scenes work, I'd playfully joke like the video should have been fired years ago for his early character. Big E, we both agreed. Just there. Solid, likable, hasn't hit that consistent main event spot.
Yeah, just consistent. Finally, Cody Rhodes. I think he's utilized perfectly the way he is now in WWE.
Totally agree. Criminally underrated for most of his career, especially early WBAEW, but arguably became overexposed in AEW near the end. His decision not to challenge for the AEW title. Framed as smart, fighting overexposure, and the stigma of an exec booking himself to the top illustrates the damned if you do, damned if you don't fan mentality.
Can't please everyone.
Some AEW fans might want Chuck Taylor as champ, then criticize top stars anyway. Cody's move back to WWE let him reset as a true main event boobyface.
Well, it's possible to please wrestling fans sometimes. Sting and Taz,
Yeah.
legends. I think Sting is overrated due to no selling back in the day. Broke realism sometimes.
Valid point on his resilience. I'd suggest Taz is a smidge overrated. Despite being a fan, he had to be a badass due to his height, became essential to his persona. And finally, Matt Cardona. Both hosts, both of us totally agreed. Underrated. His post-WWE reinvention as Deathmatch King is a masterclass.
He absolutely is. All right, everyone, we've covered a dizzying array of opinions and passionate arguments from that Down the Middle podcast video. Here's where it gets really interesting. We've seen how deeply personal, how subjective the world of pro wrestling can be. It's not just wins and losses or titles. It's character nuances, booking intricacies, in-ring safety, and ultimately, how you personally perceive and connect with talent and presentation.
And if we connect this to the bigger picture, this kind of discussion, even with all the disagreements and strong takes, highlights that understanding these diverse perspectives helps you appreciate wrestling with a much more critical, informed eye. It's about looking beyond the surface, beyond just the moves, and seeing the complex layers of strategy, performance art, fan psychology. Everything that makes this industry so endlessly fascinating shows you the rich tapestry of opinions.
So what does this all mean for your own wrestling fandom? After hearing these passionate disagreements, these surprising insights, these deep dives into the why, does it change how you view your own personal overrated or underrated list? Or maybe does it make you rewatch a match or a segment with new eyes, looking for those nuances we talked about? We're always eager to unpack more, so if you've got other sources that spark your curiosity and demand a closer look, send them our way.
How's it going, everybody? It's Jake from the Down the Middle podcast, and I want to take a quick moment to invite you to check out our show, which airs every other Thursday at 8:30 p.m. on YouTube. If you love pro wrestling, you're definitely going to want to check this out. We talk about the latest in pro wrestling.
AEW's pay-per-views are rough, man, and it's obvious, like, Tony Khan is booking for Tony Khan, and it's obvious because Tony Khan has clinical freaking ADHD, but the kind where, like, you can hyper-focus on the thing you love, and he's like, I legitimately want to watch wrestling for 7 hours. It's like, Tony.
Not everybody else does.
Hardly anybody else does.
We talk about some of our favorite things in pro wrestling.
One of the best promos ever. Like, can we just say, like, I had fucking goosebumps. And here's the thing, I know it's a work, but I'm watching that and I'm like, I think MJF might have duped somebody.
And we have a hot take here and there, too.
Nothing against Riho, it's just like, do you think the audience is fucking stupid? Riho weighs 98 pounds.
The vast majority of great moments in professional wrestling have nothing to do with the move. Don't get me wrong, the moves are part of it. Cena's like, I don't even remember how I won. Everybody remembers this.
But the best part about our show is that you are part of the conversation. So check out the show and join in the fun.